My sister-in-law told me she ran this house and I was just the guest, but she didn't realize I had the keys to her biggest secret and I was about to lock her out of our lives forever. I've been with my fiancé, Leo, for 3 years, and for every single one of those days, his older sister, Maya, has lived on our couch. When I first moved in, Leo told me she was just getting back on her feet after a messy divorce. I felt for her. I really did. I brought her coffee, I listened to her vent, and I never complained when she ate the dinner I cooked for Leo. But the kindness only went one way. It started small, little comments about how I decorated the guest room or how I shouldn't bother Leo with my work stress. But then it turned into territory marking. One Tuesday afternoon, I came home to find all of my clothes from the master bedroom sitting in trash bags in the hallway. I found Maya in the kitchen, casually sipping tea. When I asked her what on earth was going on, she didn't even blink. She told me that she had decided the master bedroom had better lighting for her mood, and that, as the elder sibling, she deserved the best room in the house. I told her she was a guest and that she needed to move her things back immediately. That's when she dropped the act. She stood up, walked right into my personal space, and whispered, "Leo might pay the mortgage, but I've been the lady of this house since before you knew his name. You're just a temporary fixture, honey. Don't forget your place." I was vibrating with rage, but I knew if I screamed, I'd look like the crazy girlfriend she wanted Leo to see. I waited for Leo to get home, certain he would fix this. Instead, he looked at the bags, looked at his sister crying about her emotional needs, and told me to just sleep in the guest room for a few nights to keep the peace. That was the moment I realized I wasn't fighting a roommate. I was fighting a decade of manipulation. But what they didn't know was that I'd accidentally opened a piece of Maya's mail earlier that day, a bank statement showing a balance of $60,000. She wasn't broke and she wasn't struggling. She was a squatter with a fortune, and I was about to make sure Leo saw every single cent. The next few days were a blur of fake smiles and quiet observation. I slept in the guest room, but I didn't sleep much. Every time I heard Maya laughing in the kitchen or saw her lounging in my master bedroom, I reminded myself, $60,000. That money wasn't just a savings account, it was proof of a 3-year-long scam. I decided to play the part of the submissive fiancé for a little longer. I wanted to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. I started looking for more clues, and I didn't have to look far. Maya was so confident in Leo's blind loyalty that she didn't even bother to hide her tracks anymore. I found a hidden folder in the shared home office. Inside weren't just bank statements. There were pay stubs. Maya hadn't been unemployed for a single day. She was working a high-level remote job for a tech company under her maiden name, which is why Leo never suspected a thing when he looked at their shared family tax history. But the betrayal went deeper. I found a series of emails between Maya and their mother. In them, Maya joked about how easy it was to live off Leo. She bragged about how she was going to use the money Leo saved for our wedding to buy herself a vacation home in Florida. She told their mother, "Once I get Leo to kick that girl out, the house will be ours again, just like when we were kids." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a sister who didn't want to move out. This was a coordinated effort to financially and emotionally drain her brother while isolating him from anyone who could protect him. I realized then that showing Leo the bank statement wouldn't be enough. He was so conditioned to keep the peace that he might just forgive her. I needed to catch her in a lie so big that even his blind loyalty would break. I knew Maya's company was having a major virtual gala that Friday, a black tie Zoom event where she'd be receiving an award for top producer. She thought I didn't know. She told Leo she was going to a support group for struggling women that night. I decided that Friday would be the night the lady of the house finally lost her throne. Friday arrived and the tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. Maya spent the entire afternoon getting ready in the master bedroom, the room she'd stolen from me. She told Leo she was nervous about her support group meeting because they were discussing deep childhood traumas. Leo, being the sweet, gullible man he is, spent 2 hours making her a special comfort dinner so she'd feel supported before she left. It made my stomach churn to see him slave over a stove for a woman who was currently laughing at him in her emails. Around 6:00 p.m., Maya left for her meeting, except she didn't leave. I watched from the guest room window as she drove her car around the block, parked in the shadows, and snuck back into the house through the basement door. She thought I was in the kitchen and Leo was in the garage. She didn't realize I had installed a small motion-activated camera in the hallway the day before. I watched on my phone as she crept up to the master bedroom, now wearing a $500 sequined gown she'd hidden in a gym bag. I waited until I heard the faint sound of orchestral music and clapping coming from the bedroom. The virtual gala had started. I walked into the garage and found Leo. I didn't say a word, I just handed him my phone. His eyes widened as he watched the footage of his traumatized sister sneaking back into the house in a ball gown. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice shaking. I told him, "That's not a support group, Leo. That's a celebration of the money she's been stealing from your future." I led him upstairs. We stood outside the master bedroom door. Inside, we could hear Maya's voice. She sounded different, confident, professional, and arrogant. "I want to thank my firm for this award," she cooed into her laptop. "It's been a challenging year, especially living in such a modest environment to save on costs. But it's all worth it now that I'm closing on my Florida property." Leo's face went from confusion to a cold, hard mask of fury. He didn't wait for me to prompt him. He kicked the door open. Maya froze. She was mid-sip of expensive champagne, looking into her webcam at hundreds of her colleagues. Leo didn't care about her career. He walked right into the frame of the camera, looked directly into the lens, and said, "I hope this award covers the 3 years of rent you owe me, you lying snake." The silence that followed Leo's outburst was deafening, broken only by the tinny sound of gasps coming from Maya's laptop speakers. Her boss, her colleagues, the people she had spent years impressing, had all just witnessed her modest life lie get shredded in 5 seconds. Maya scrambled to slam the laptop shut, her face shifting from a horrified pale to a deep, ugly purple. She didn't look like a top producer anymore. She looked like a cornered animal. "Leo, I can explain!" she shrieked, her voice cracking as she tried to stand up in her heavy gown. But Leo wasn't listening. He walked over to the closet, our closet, and began grabbing her designer clothes, the ones she had hidden behind our winter coats, and started hurling them into the hallway. "Explain the $60,000, Maya," he roared. "Or should we explain the Florida property to Mom and Dad? Because I'm sure they'd love to know why their struggling daughter is buying a beach house while I'm working double shifts to pay for her electricity." I stood by the door, watching the chaos unfold. Maya turned her venom on me. "You did this," she screamed, lunging toward me. "You've been digging through my things. You're a pathetic, jealous little girl who couldn't handle that I was more important to him than you'll ever be." I didn't flinch. I just held up my phone, which was still recording. "I didn't have to dig very hard, Maya. You were so arrogant you thought we were too stupid to notice you were living a double life under our own roof." Leo stopped throwing clothes and looked at her with a level of disgust I had never seen before. It wasn't just anger, it was the death of his love for her. "Get out," he said, his voice terrifyingly quiet. Maya tried to laugh it off, a high-pitched manic sound. "It's my house too, Leo. I've been here for 4 years. You can't just throw me out. I have rights." Leo stepped closer to her, his shadow towering over her sequined dress. "You have exactly 20 minutes to get your essentials and get out of this room. If you're still in this house by midnight, I'm calling the police and handing them the records of the home office expenses you've been illegally deducting from my mortgage." Maya realized the game was truly over. She didn't cry this time. She just glared at us both with pure, unadulterated hatred. But as she began to pack, I noticed her eyes darting toward her bedside table. She was planning something else. By 11 p.m., Maya had dragged 3 suitcases to her car, but she wasn't leaving quietly. As she pulled out of the driveway, I saw the blue light of her phone illuminating her face. She wasn't calling a taxi or a hotel. She was launching a nuclear strike on our reputations. Within 10 minutes, Leo's phone started exploding with notifications. His mother was the first to call. She didn't even ask for his side of the story. She started screaming that he was an abuser and a monster for throwing his homeless, disabled sister onto the street in the middle of the night. Maya had sent a mass text to the entire extended family, along with a cropped video of Leo throwing her clothes. In her version of the story, Leo had been physically aggressive, and I was the manipulative mastermind who had forced him to turn against his own flesh and blood. Leo sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, listening to his mother disown him over the speakerphone. "Mom, she has $60,000, he tried to say, but his mother wouldn't listen. She called him a liar and told him that if he didn't go find Maya and bring her back, he was dead to the family. It was heartbreaking to watch. Maya had spent years cultivating this image of the victim, and the family had bought into it so deeply that the truth didn't even matter to them. But Maya made one huge mistake. In her rush to play the victim, she forgot that I still had the original, unedited footage of the gala crash. And more importantly, I had the copies of her emails to her mother where she bragged about milking Leo dry. I looked at Leo and told him, "We can let them think what they want, or we can end this right now." Leo looked up, his eyes red but determined. He realized that the family he was trying to protect was the same family that was currently calling him a monster, without a single shred of proof. He grabbed his laptop and said, "Send me the files. All of them." We didn't just send them to his mom. We created a group chat with every single person Maya had messaged. We weren't just defending ourselves anymore. We were exposing the rot that had been living in our house for 4 years. And as the read receipt started popping up on the screen, the silence from the other side was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The aftermath of the group chat blast was chilling. For nearly 20 minutes, the phone was dead silent. No one typed. No one called. Then, the typing far bubbles started appearing from multiple family members at once. The first to break was Leo's aunt, who had always been the voice of reason. She simply replied, "Maya, is this true? Are you really in Florida right now?" Maya's response was a flurry of excuses. She claimed the emails were taken out of context and that the bank statement was photoshopped. But then, I dropped the final hammer. I uploaded the video from the hallway camera, the one showing her sneaking back into the house in her $500 gala dress after pretending to go to a support group. Seeing her perfectly healthy, dressed like royalty, and sneaking through a basement door like a thief was the final straw. The group chat exploded again, but this time the anger wasn't directed at us. Leo's mother, who had been screaming at him just minutes ago, stopped texting entirely. She called him back, but Leo didn't answer. He let it go to voicemail. He wasn't ready to forgive the woman who had called him an abuser without even asking for the truth. "They're only sorry because they got caught looking like fools," Leo whispered, looking at his phone. "They didn't care about the truth. They just cared about the drama." We thought that was the end of the night, but Maya wasn't done. Around 2 a.m., we heard a loud crashing sound from the driveway. We ran to the window to see Maya's car speeding away, leaving behind a trail of broken glass. She had come back in the dead of night to smash the windows of Leo's truck. It was a pathetic, desperate act of a woman who had lost her power. Leo didn't even yell this time. He just pulled out his phone, dialed the non-emergency police line, and said, "I have high-definition security footage of my sister vandalizing my property. I'd like to file a report." He looked at me and squeezed my hand. For the first time in years, the lady of the house was finally being treated like the criminal she was. The police arrived shortly after 2:30 a.m. They took photos of the shattered glass and the brick Maya had thrown through the windshield. Leo was surprisingly calm as he handed over the security footage. It was as if the weight of the last 4 years had been lifted the moment he realized he didn't have to protect her anymore. Once the officers left, the house felt eerily quiet. For the first time in years, there was no one humming in the kitchen, No one playing loud music, and no one making us feel like intruders in our own home. We decided to move back into the master bedroom. I didn't want to spend another night in the guest room, and Leo wanted to reclaim his space. But when we walked through the door, the smell hit us first. Maya hadn't just packed her things, she had left us a parting gift. She had poured a gallon of milk into the vents and under the floorboards. In the heat of the house, it was already starting to sour. It was a petty, disgusting act of vandalism designed to make the room uninhabitable. As we started stripping the sheets and cleaning, Leo noticed a loose floorboard near the closet. He pried it up, expecting more milk. Instead, he found a small, locked metal box. It didn't look like something a struggling person would have. We broke the lock, and inside we found something much worse than bank statements. We found Leo's original birth certificate, his social security card, and a series of credit card applications, all in his name, but with an address in Florida. My heart sank. Maya hadn't just been living off his rent. She had been stealing his identity to build her Florida lifestyle. She had opened 3 different credit cards in Leo's name and had been maxing them out to pay for the furniture and down payment on her beach house. Leo's credit score, which he had worked so hard to build for our future home, was likely in ruins. The betrayal was now complete. She wasn't just a sister who stayed too long. She was a thief who was systematically destroying her brother's financial future while he slept in the room next door. Leo didn't even cry this time. He just picked up the box and said, "This isn't a family matter anymore. This is a felony." The next morning, we didn't go to work. We went to the police station with the metal box. Leo was a shell of a man, staring blankly at the stack of credit card statements we had managed to download from his online banking once we knew what to look for. Over $30,000 in debt had been racked up in his name while he was busy buying his sister's groceries. While we were waiting to speak to a detective, Leo's parents pulled into the parking lot. They had seen the family group chat, and instead of being horrified by Maya's actions, they were there to mediate. His father walked up to Leo and told him he was being too dramatic, and that siblings make mistakes. His mother even had the nerve to suggest that the identity theft was probably just Maya borrowing his credit to get settled. Borrowing? Leo's voice cracked, but it wasn't from sadness. It was from pure, unadulterated shock. "She stole my social security card, Mom. She destroyed my credit. We were going to buy a house this year, and now I might not even be able to get a car loan. And you're calling it a mistake?" His mother tried to grab his arm, crying about how the family couldn't survive a scandal like this. She told us that if we pressed charges, she would never speak to us again. It was the ultimate ultimatum. She was willing to let her son's life be ruined, just to save her daughter from the consequences of her own crimes. I stepped in front of Leo. I looked his mother in the eye and said, "Then I guess you'd better start saying your goodbyes, because we aren't protecting a criminal anymore, even if she shares your last name." Just then, the doors to the back office opened. 2 officers walked out, leading Maya in handcuffs. She had been picked up at a local hotel for the vandalism of the truck. When she saw us and then saw her parents, she didn't look ashamed. She screamed at Leo, telling him he was dead to her and that she'd make sure he lost everything. But as the detective held up the metal box we had turned in, the color drained from her face. She realized then that this wasn't just about a broken window anymore. This was about a decade behind bars. The weeks leading up to the preliminary hearing were a nightmare of blocked phone numbers and flying monkeys. Maya's parents didn't stick to their word about never speaking to us. Instead, they called Leo dozens of times a day, alternating between begging for mercy and threatening to sue him for emotional distress. They even tried to offer him $10,000, half of which was likely Maya's stolen money anyway, to drop the charges. Leo didn't budge. For the first time, he saw his family for what they were, a support system for a parasite. When the court date finally arrived, the atmosphere was freezing. Maya sat at the defense table, wearing a modest suit her mother had bought her, trying to look like the struggling victim once again. Her lawyer tried to argue that the identity theft was a family misunderstanding, and that Maya had intended to pay the money back once her Florida property appreciated in value. He even had the audacity to call Maya's boss from the tech company to testify about her stellar work ethic. That was the defense's biggest mistake. Under cross-examination, the truth about the virtual gala came out. It was revealed that Maya had lied to her company about her living situation to claim hardship bonuses and remote work stipends. Not only was she stealing from her brother, but she was also defrauding her employer. By the time the hearing was over, Maya wasn't just facing charges for identity theft and vandalism. Her company announced they were launching their own private investigation into her financial records. The judge was unimpressed by the family bond argument. He looked at the evidence in the metal box, the deliberate, cold-blooded planning required to steal a sibling's identity while living under their roof, and set a massive bail that her parents couldn't afford. As she was led back to the holding cell, she looked at her mother and father, expecting them to save her. But they just sat there, looking at the floor. They finally realized that by protecting Maya, they had lost their only son, and by the end of the day, their daughter was going to lose her freedom regardless. Leo walked out of that courtroom with his shoulders back. He didn't look back at them. He looked at me, took a deep breath of the fresh air outside, and said, "It's finally quiet." But the real justice wasn't just the handcuffs. It was what happened when we got home and opened a letter from the bank. The letter from the bank was the final piece of the puzzle. It wasn't a bill or a notice of debt. Because we had filed the police report and provided the evidence of identity theft from the metal box, the bank had finished their internal audit. They were wiping the $30,000 of fraudulent debt from Leo's name. His credit score was restored, and more importantly, the bank was moving to seize the assets Maya had purchased using the stolen funds, including the down payment on her Florida beach house. Maya was eventually sentenced to 4 years in state prison for identity theft and grand larceny. Without her high-paying job or her brother's house to leech off of, she had nothing. Her Florida dream evaporated before she even got to see the ocean. Her company sued her for the return of the bonuses she'd claimed under false pretenses, ensuring that even when she gets out, she will be paying back her debts for the rest of her life. As for Leo's parents, they tried one last time to apologize. They sent a long, rambling email about how they were manipulated by Maya, too. They invited us to Christmas dinner as if nothing had happened. Leo didn't even delete the email. He just moved it to a folder labeled evidence and didn't reply. He realized that a family that only loves you when it's convenient isn't a family at all. We haven't spoken to them in over a year, and our house has never been more peaceful. We finally had our wedding last month. It was small, quiet, and filled only with people who actually care about us. There was no lady of the house to mark her territory, no fake panic attacks to steal the spotlight, and no hidden boxes under the floorboards. As we sat on our porch that evening, Leo turned to me and thanked me for being the one person who refused to keep the peace at the cost of our future. I looked at the house, our house, and smiled. Maya thought she ran the place, but in the end, she was just a guest who overstayed her welcome. And the best part? I didn't even have to change the locks. The truth did that for me.